August 13th, 2018. Frederick, Colorado, a quiet suburban neighborhood. Streets lined with neat lawns, mailbox flags waving gently in the morning breeze. Life here seemed ordinary, safe, predictable. But safety is often an illusion. At 1:48 a.m., surveillance cameras caught a man backing a truck into his driveway. Hours later, his wife Shanann and their two young daughters, Bella and Celeste, would vanish without a trace. The man was Chris Watts' husband, father, neighbor, seemingly ordinary. Yet beneath the calm exterior, a darkness lurked, a secret so chilling it would shock an entire nation. Neighbors would soon recall subtle signs they had ignored, friends would wonder how they didn't notice, and authorities would struggle to piece together a sequence of events so horrifying it would become one of the most infamous domestic murder cases in recent U.S. history. Chris Watts, tall, reserved, methodical, meticulous, had always been a private man. His calm demeanor, polite manners, and quiet work ethic masked the storm brewing within his home. Shanann Watts, vibrant, ambitious, charismatic, documented every aspect of her life on social media, sharing moments of joy, family snapshots, celebrations. Outwardly, they were the perfect couple, the ideal family. Yet in the hours after Shanann returned home from a short business trip, something went horribly wrong. The children were never seen again. Friends and neighbors would call. Messages went unanswered. Panic set in. If chilling true crime stories intrigue you, subscribe to Dark Case Files, hit like, and comment below with your theories. It helps us bring you more dark mysteries, and we want to hear your thoughts on this case. Frederick, Colorado, a small town outside Denver. Quiet streets where everyone knew each other. Shanann and Chris lived in a modest home with two young daughters, a life that from the outside looked ordinary, safe, happy. Neighbors would later describe Chris as polite, friendly, often keeping to himself. Shanann, on the other hand, was warm, energetic, outgoing, always sharing her family moments online, planning parties, connecting with friends and coworkers. But as the investigation would reveal, the image of suburban perfection hid tensions, frustrations, and secrets that would soon explode. On the night of August 13th, surveillance footage captured Chris's truck entering the garage, the last time anyone would see the children alive. Authorities would later note his calmness, the absence of panic, the carefully rehearsed words, and begin to wonder, was this the behavior of a grieving husband or someone hiding the unthinkable? Chris Watts was born in 1985 in North Carolina, a quiet, observant boy, introverted, preferring cars and machinery to social gatherings. He spent hours tinkering in garages, fascinated by engines and mechanics, meticulous and precise. Teachers described him as polite, compliant, focused, yet distant. No one imagined he would one day commit acts so dark. Shanann Rizasek, born in 1984, was almost the opposite: energetic, expressive, ambitious, socially magnetic. She lit up rooms with her presence, friends and family drawn to her confidence. She documented her life on social media, sharing experiences, entrepreneurial ventures, and family moments. Their paths crossed in 2010, love blossomed quickly. Chris's calm demeanor complementing Shanann's vibrant energy. Marriage followed shortly. By 2013, they had two daughters, Bella and Celeste. Shanann was pregnant with a third child. Outward appearances told a story of perfection, happiness, stability. But beneath the smiling photos and social media posts, subtle tensions brewed. Even in a seemingly perfect marriage, small cracks were forming, cracks that would soon widen into an unimaginable tragedy. Life in Frederick seemed idyllic: quiet streets, friendly neighbors, weekends spent at the park, birthdays celebrated with laughter. Yet in the Watts household, tension sometimes simmered beneath the surface. Chris worked long, demanding hours in the oil fields. Shanann managed household duties, business ventures, and the children. Financial strain added stress. Minor arguments flared. Neighbors occasionally overheard raised voices. Shannon expressed frustration online. Small glimpses of marital tension appeared. Chris withdrew, private, silent, occasionally distant. Friends and family noticed subtle changes, a sense that all was not as perfect as it seemed. Still, the family maintained appearances, smiling for photos, attending community events, neighbors unaware of the storm gathering behind closed doors. The signs were there, hidden in everyday life, yet nobody could have predicted the horror to come. In the days leading to August 13th, the family's life seemed routine, but small anomalies began to emerge. Shannon returned from a short business trip late at night. Chris's behavior was calm, perhaps too calm. Neighbors reported seeing the family interact normally, yet subtle oddities appeared. Friends noticed Shannon texting frequently, sometimes with urgency. Chris stayed indoors, avoiding conversation. Social media activity reflected Shannon's excitement about upcoming events. Chris posted little, creating a subtle contrast. Financial stress, work fatigue, and personal dissatisfaction combined into an invisible pressure cooker. On August 13th, 1:48 a.m., security cameras caught Chris backing his truck into the garage, the last public visual of him with the family. From this point forward, the fate of Shannon and her daughters would plunge the town into confusion, fear, and disbelief. If you're following this chilling case, don't forget to subscribe to Dark Case Files, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your theories on what happened next. August 13th, 2018. Frederick, Colorado, a sleepy suburb that had never experienced a crime like this. Shannon returned home from her business trip late at night. She carried bags from her trip, smiled, and greeted her daughters. The home was quiet, peaceful, seemingly ordinary. Yet that night would mark the end of innocence for the family. Hours later, friends and coworkers noticed Shannon's calls went unanswered, appointments were missed, concern began to ripple outward. Nicole Atkinson, a close friend, arrived at the Watts home the next day. The driveway was empty, the house silent. Shannon's car sat in the garage, the children's car seats untouched. Alarm bells rang. Panic set in. Nicole contacted authorities. Police arrived quickly, assessing the scene. Chris Watts greeted them, calm, composed, almost rehearsed. Why did Chris appear so calm? Was it grief, or something darker hidden behind his polite demeanor? Officers noted the absence of panic. Chris's answers were measured, consistent. But investigators are trained to notice anomalies, tiny inconsistencies, subtle hesitations. Neighbors were interviewed, statements gathered. No one had seen Shannon or the children. Chris provided explanations that were mostly plausible, yet something didn't sit right. The investigation officially began. Authorities pieced together a timeline from surveillance cameras, phone records, and witness accounts. The first seeds of suspicion were planted, though the full horror was still hidden from view. News of the disappearance spread rapidly. Neighbors and friends were anxious. Social media lit up with concern and speculation. Local residents organized search efforts. Flyers were printed. Volunteers combed nearby areas, each moment increasing the sense of urgency. The media began to cover the story. News crews arriving in Frederick, cameras capturing the worried faces of neighbors, pundits discussing the mystery of a suburban family gone missing. While the community searched desperately, investigators were starting to uncover clues that hinted at betrayal, deception, and unimaginable tragedy. Authorities examined surveillance footage, GPS data from phones and vehicles, financial transactions. Every detail became a potential piece of the puzzle. Chris's behavior was analyzed, interviews conducted. Inconsistencies emerged, small contradictions, moments of hesitation, subtle signs that something was off. Neighbors' accounts painted a picture of a normal family, smiling, friendly. But behind closed doors, tension, dissatisfaction, and secrecy existed. Investigators were now beginning to see a pattern, a story hidden beneath the facade of suburban perfection, and the truth would shock the community to its core. Authorities began digging deeper, collecting phone records, GPS data, and financial transactions. Every call, every location ping became a thread in a complex tapestry of truth. Friends and coworkers were interviewed, each recalling small details, the late nights, the quiet arguments, the subtle shifts in Chris's behavior. Detectives noticed inconsistencies, minor contradictions in Chris's timeline, subtle hesitations in his voice, the kind of details trained eyes cannot ignore. Every answer raised more questions, every explanation seemed rehearsed, and the tension in Frederick grew, but the full horror was still hidden beneath a calm, suburban facade. Shanann's friends recalled her social media posts, vibrant, cheerful, yet sometimes tinged with subtle frustration, a mother juggling business, family, and expectations. Work colleagues remembered Chris as quiet, polite, yet private, withdrawn at times, seemingly normal. In hindsight, these small observations would later appear as ominous warnings, clues hidden in plain sight, waiting for investigators to unravel them. Local news outlets covered the disappearance extensively. Cameras rolled on the quiet suburban streets. Reporters interviewed anxious neighbors. Social media amplified the story. Hashtags trended. Thousands speculated theories ranged from abduction to voluntary disappearance. Each post a reflection of public fear and curiosity. Authorities, meanwhile, maintained tight-lipped professionalism, cautious with statements, trying to piece together facts before media frenzy distorted reality. Amidst the chaos of speculation and panic, the first official hints of the horrifying truth began to emerge. Detectives discovered troubling evidence. Chris's calm composure, now under intense scrutiny, small but damning inconsistencies. Friends, family, and neighbors were shocked. Questions multiplied. The narrative of a perfect suburban family began to crumble. The investigation was only beginning, and soon, the town of Frederick would confront a truth so dark, so unimaginable, it would leave a permanent scar on everyone involved. If you're captivated by this chilling case, make sure to subscribe to Dark Case Files, hit like, and comment your theories below. Before we continue uncovering more dark mysteries, Frederick, Colorado, the quiet streets that had once seemed safe, now buzzed with tension, whispers of a disappearance, speculation in the air. Chris Watts, once the smiling, polite husband and father, was now under intense scrutiny. Authorities and neighbors alike were unsettled by his calm composure. Detectives were digging through phone records, GPS logs, financial statements, piecing together the final hours of Shanann and her daughters. What seemed like a simple disappearance was beginning to reveal a darkness beyond comprehension. Police interviewed co-workers, friends, and neighbors, documenting every detail. Small contradictions began to appear in Chris's statements. Neighbors described the family's smiles and laughter, the joyful chaos of children playing. Yet investigators began to see tension hidden behind closed doors. Forensic teams collected evidence from the home, dusting for fingerprints, analyzing digital communications, tracking vehicle movements. Each new clue tightened the web around Chris Watts, and the truth was slowly surfacing from the shadows. Every statement was measured, the pressure to solve the case mounted. The more the town speculated, the closer investigators were coming to the horrifying truth. Chris Watts' behavior became increasingly inconsistent, subtle slips, contradictory answers, unexplained movements. Investigators noticed small but significant details. The timing of phone calls, GPS inconsistencies, evidence of attempts to mislead authorities. Friends and family began questioning the narrative. Whispers of doubt spread, the image of a perfect family crumbling under the weight of suspicion. Every movement of Chris Watts tracked. The timeline he had provided began to unravel. Small inconsistencies appeared, missing details, contradictory statements, each one raising suspicion. Shanann's friends recalled texts and phone calls from the days before her disappearance, Messages that seemed ordinary at first glance, but when pieced together, painted a troubling picture. Every seemingly innocent detail was a thread, pulling detectives closer to a truth so horrifying it would shock the nation. Neighbors described Chris in subtle but noticeable ways: polite, calm, but avoiding eye contact, spending unusual hours alone in his garage. One neighbor mentioned seeing him carry large objects late at night. Heavy, bulky items, wrapped and covered small details, easily overlooked. Friends began voicing concern. Something isn't right, they whispered, but no one could have imagined the scope of the tragedy awaiting discovery. While the town slept, a horrifying secret was hidden in plain sight, waiting for investigators to uncover it. Detectives focused on Chris, his calmness increasingly unnerving. Every response scrutinized. Forensic evidence from his home and truck became critical. Fingerprints, fibers, and digital footprints all pointing to discrepancies in his story. Authorities began preparing for formal interviews, understanding that each word Chris spoke could either conceal or reveal the truth. The walls were closing in, and the man behind the perfect facade was about to face the unraveling of his carefully constructed lies. The pressure on investigators to solve the mystery intensified with every passing hour. As the world watched, detectives were closing in, and the truth that lay beneath the suburban facade was closer than anyone could imagine. By now, detectives had meticulously reconstructed Chris's timeline. Every detail cross-checked. Inconsistencies became impossible to ignore. In formal interviews, Chris maintained his calm demeanor, polite, measured, but investigators noted subtle signs of tension, small pauses, fleeting glances, moments of avoidance. Friends and co-workers described him as the same quiet, polite man. Yet behind that composure, investigators sensed a concealed truth. Every calm answer was scrutinized, every word weighed against the evidence, and the investigators were closing in on a truth too dark to fathom. Chris's explanations began to fray. Small contradictions emerged. The story he had carefully constructed was starting to collapse under scrutiny. Detectives knew that time was critical. Every passing hour increased the emotional toll on the community, family, and investigators. The perfect facade was crumbling, and every lie, every concealment, was now a thread leading to a horrifying truth. Under prolonged questioning, Chris's calmness began to show cracks, fleeting signs of anxiety, subtle defensive body language. Investigators used strategic techniques, asking the same questions in different ways, observing reactions, noting inconsistencies. Friends and family outside the interrogation room could only speculate, whispers of doubt growing. Chris's carefully constructed world of lies was beginning to unravel. Small contradictions exposed cracks that no amount of explanation could mend. Investigators prepared for the inevitable, the moment when the truth would finally emerge. The next few hours would change everything, uncover the unimaginable, and reveal the darkness hidden behind a suburban smile. Hours into questioning, Chris Watt's composure began to falter. Small cracks in his story, subtle hesitations. Detectives pushed carefully, using evidence as leverage, pointing out inconsistencies, timing gaps, and unexplained movements. Finally, Chris admitted fragments of the truth, a story that began to reveal the unimaginable. The first words of confession were just the opening to a horror no one was prepared to face. As Chris revealed the details, the investigation confirmed what authorities had feared: the fate of Sean Ann and the children. Friends, neighbors, and the nation struggled to comprehend a man they thought they knew, a suburban family's smiling father, responsible for the ultimate betrayal. Detectives pieced together the timeline. Every lie, every concealment, every calculated action now made sense in the grim mosaic. The suburban facade had vanished, replaced by a horror that would haunt Frederick forever. Word of the confession spread quickly. News crews arrived in force. Live coverage captured shock, disbelief, and mourning. Chris Watts was taken into custody. The legal process began, charges filed, court appearances scheduled. Psychologists and true crime analysts dissected his behavior, the why behind the unthinkable patterns of manipulation, secrecy, and denial. Shanann's friends and family sought justice, grieving, while the world tried to comprehend the brutality. Even after justice began its course, the echoes of this crime would linger, haunting every corner of Frederick, Colorado, and the memories of the family lost. The Watts case remains one of the most chilling examples of deception, betrayal, and tragedy in modern true crime. For viewers captivated by this story, make sure to subscribe to Dark Case Files, hit like, and comment your thoughts or theories below. We continue to uncover the darkest mysteries and shocking true crime cases. Because in every quiet town, behind every smiling facade, secrets may be waiting, ready to emerge in ways no one expects.